Welcome to Boss Radio Live, everyone. Welcome to Boss Radio Live with NJ. I'm your host, NJ, and I am so glad that you are joining us today. We have an amazing guest with us today, Mr. Branch Isole, and he is here. He is an amazing storyteller, but he is here to talk about the 7 steps to relationship repair, which I think is so important. So I'm so excited for today's show. Make sure you share the episode, like the episode, share it out because this is going to be a good one coming right up. It's Boss Radio Live with NJ, your three-dimensional podcast. Baltimore, Maryland. I love my city. Wow. You have to have balance.
Mother's Day extravaganza event being held. ILC Lois Butler Culver.
Come meet me today at the Spirit Center. I want to hear what you have to say. Again, welcome to Boss Radio Live. So, like I said, we have an amazing guest today. His name is Branch Isole, and we will be talking about the 7 steps to relationship repair. So, this is going to be a good one, guys. So, in case you've never heard of Branch, here's a little information about him. Branch Isole is an author, poet, and storyteller. He's authored 22 books, short stories, and poems. He is known for his short stories that reveal issues and emotions, often experienced, but not always voiced. He believes that the story of what can be encourages us to embrace what is and what is possible. Branch continues to inspire and uplift others worldwide with his special brand of spiritual storytelling. So, everyone, welcome to the show, Branch Isole.
Thank
Well,
you, NJ.
welcome. So
Thank
glad
you.
to have you on. I think this is an amazingly important topic. So I was excited to have you on today. And we're going to hop into that. But one, I wanted to know just a little bit about you. How did you really get into doing what you do?
Wow, what a great question. People always wonder how writers, how authors get to that place in their life, how they become authors. And had anyone told me, in my younger days that I would be writing and publishing, it would have been the farthest thing from my mind. It was not, even in the realm of possibility for me. And my upbringing, I grew up in the 50s and 60s and pretty average, you know, upbringing. I was a military brat, so I got to travel quite a lot growing up. I spent, every 4 years in the military, you move someplace. And I
Hmm.
lived in a lot of different areas and overseas. So I was exposed to a lot of different cultures and a lot of different people, in my formative years. After school, I went into corporate America. I was a teacher for a short time, and then I went into corporate America in sales and marketing. And the next phase after I left the corporate world, I just kind of bounced around. I did a lot of kind of manual labor kinds of things. I was disappointed in the the things that I had done in the corporate world, and it wasn't for me. So I got out of the corporate world and started to discover a little bit about who I was and what my place in the world looked like to me. And after that, I got onto the spiritual path. And in my search for truth, it brought me back to a relationship with God and walking the spiritual path. And that's what I've been on for the last half of my life. And about 25 years ago, I decided I needed to write a book. I had a calling to write a book, and it was primarily for seekers and searchers and fallen away Christians. And that's how I got into the authorship. And one book led to another, and 22 books later, here we are.
That is an amazing number of books. When I saw that, I was like, wow, what fortitude does it take to write 22 books? And I, caught a couple of the titles. So I see you have quite a few spiritually based books. Um, but this relationship topic, how did how did you get into speaking with people about this? Because I'm like, okay, I can understand the spiritual, journey that you went on, but this is a more specific
Sure.
uh, topic here.
Well, I've experienced lots of different relationships in my life. Again, because of my travels and my studies, the reflection of what I found is that we all experience similar or the same lessons in life. They manifest themselves in different ways and at different times, but the fundamental lessons of life are all the same. And it's all about our growth. How do we get from, childhood to young adulthood to old adulthood? And what do we do along the way? Life is all about relationships. So we are in relationships, from the get-go, from our first breath. We are dependent on other people and we are interacting with other people. So the relationship aspect of the spirituality is sort of how that came to be. When we have relationships with others, whether it's at home or at work or with our families, or today with extended families, there's a lot of dynamics always taking place. There's a lot of interaction and emotions and feelings. There's a lot of things going on in our relationships. And we're trying to juggle relationships, all of those at the same time. We've got those relationships at work that we're trying to deal with and work with and deal with different personalities. We've got the same thing at home. We've got it with our friends. So our whole life is this constant interaction of relationships. And what I have found, in my studies and in my observations is human behavior is pretty consistent. That is, people respond in very similar ways, regardless of what the impact of the specific situation may be. We respond, with a lot of emotion and a lot of feelings and a lot of putting ourselves out there or investing ourselves in relationships fundamentally for what's in it for me. What can I get out of this relationship? And that's actually kind of the worst place to come from, because when our relationship is all about us, by its very nature, we are pushing away those who aren't giving us what we want. And this is where, most of the troubles come from in our relationships. The problems exist because we feed into the problems and then we allow them to exist. And once we allow them to become part of our relationship, a lot of times they sort of take control of us, and our
Mm.
responses aren't always, what we want or what we intended, but we a lot of times say and do the wrong thing. And then, of course, after we regret it. And then the worst part is we start to beat ourselves up about it. And we just start digging that hole deeper and deeper and deeper. And then we wonder, well, why are my relationships, you know, so difficult? Why are they in the can? Why can't I have, that ideal relationship that I see presented to me through all my media connections?
Wow.
It's a tough journey.
I agree. I agree. And often I really think that we walk around in, I guess, what I would call broken relationships and don't even know it.
Yeah.
Like we just think this is how this is supposed to go, or this is just life, or, I'm having bad luck. All sorts
Yeah.
of things that we kind of think. But you go into these levels of damaged relationships. And so let's talk a little bit about that. What are these three levels of a damaged relationship?
Sure. The one we are most often familiar with, and the one we get sort of caught up in, is the manifestation level. I'm in a relationship, right? And one or more, both of us are trying to do our best. At least we claim to be trying to do our best. And yet, one of us does something that is harmful or sows that seed of damage. And when the reality comes to light, and what I've done is exposed, right, and my partner finds out what I've done, um, he or she dwells on the action, that is what harm I have actually committed that has made them feel or has betrayed their trust. And so all of our emphasis is put on the action. You cheated on me and therefore you don't love me. And that's where we tend to get stuck. Um, the second level, which is the deeper level that is has come to light because of the manifestation, the action, is actually that feeling of betrayal. You did something that hurt me or harmed me, and I'm focusing on the action that you committed. But the reality is the pain that I'm feeling is the betrayal. Anytime we're in a relationship, again, whether it's at home or at work, we make a certain commitment to that relationship. And when that commitment is breached by one or the other person, the person who is harmed feels a very strong and intense betrayal inside. That's what's hurting their heart. The manifested action may be hurting their mind, but the betrayal is the thing that really sticks with us. Then the third level is even deeper, and that's the betrayal of the trust. Again, when we've committed to a relationship, especially an intimate relationship, a love relationship, we are committing that we trust that person above, all the other people in our lives. And we've chosen to be vulnerable with that particular person. So that vulnerability is where trust lives. And when we've been betrayed, what's really damaged is our trust in the other person. We don't think we can ever trust them again. So those are the three levels: the manifested or action level, that is the actual thing that the other person does to harm us. Our sense of betrayal has been triggered. And then once that's damaged, we don't think we can ever trust again. And this is the key that keeps so many people going from, a damaged relation into another damaged relation into another damaged relation. The trust issue is always in the back of their mind. My first partner did this to me. What if my second partner does this to me? Can I ever trust them? And of course, if there's an issue, then that only reinforces I can't trust anybody. So I can't trust those that I'm in a relationship with. And once we get to that place, it's very difficult for us to grow It's difficult to grow, in our relationships, and it's difficult for us to grow, for and by ourselves so that we can become better people. So it's a deep hole that we try to get out of, and sometimes we take all the wrong steps, thinking
Mm.
that, well, if I do this, everything will be okay. But that seed of distrust remains, and that's where the real battle is.
Wow. And I can definitely see that in relationships that I have watched and relationships that I have been in. It's a personal
That's
thing.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
you can get stuck
Mhm.
there. You get stuck right
Well,
there and can't move forward. Yeah.
yeah, this is,
Wow.
when we're in a hurtful or harmful relationship, we think we're the only ones that are experiencing that or have ever experienced. And the fact is, we all suffer damage in our relationships because we're people. We all make mistakes. We all, commit errors of judgment that come back to haunt us. So when someone thinks, I'm the only one experiencing this and nobody's experienced it to this depth or this level, the fact is they have. And this is why it's so important to be in relationships that are growth filled and growing and moving forward. If you're with somebody who's trying to hold you back for their own reasons, control, insecurity, all of those kinds of things, then that's probably when you see red flags, you should pay attention, because
Mm.
that's how this is not a good place for me to be. I need to look elsewhere. They're always there.
Wow.
We always see them. We want to deny them. We want to put them aside. We want to sweep them under the table, but they're always there for us. And that's the hard part, is recognizing, this person and their actions are not in my best interest.
Yes, and I think that happens early on. I don't think you have to be, married or together for an extremely long time. And you would think it would be easier to see those things early on, but we seem to ignore them more early on.
Well,
So that's
you know,
interesting to me that we do that.
we all experience tough childhoods, whatever
Mhm.
that is for us. It's very seldom that you ever find someone who's had a great childhood or, unconditionally loving parents. It's just not the way we are as a species. So yeah, those things can start very early, very, very early. And, that's what psychology and psychiatry is all about, trying to get to those childhood traumas that we
Mhm.
continue to carry with us. And instead of, trying to figure out why we feel the way we do, we try and gloss it over with somebody else. Well, they'll be okay, and they'll fix me. And it's a self journey, and that's why spirituality is so important, because it gives
Mhm.
you a grounding in your life that you can't get anywhere else.
I absolutely agree. So with that being said, because you kind of hinted on types of things that may, really it may really be better for you to leave a relationship. But often I see kind of the opposite, I guess it's what I've been around, and that people are in troubled relationships and they won't abandon it. They won't
Yeah.
leave it. They keep sticking around. Um, so what do you think makes us do that as opposed to leaving?
Well, number one, we're all needy, otherwise we
Mm,
wouldn't be in relationships. We're trying to fulfill in ourselves the things that we lack, and this is, yeah, it's hard to leave a relationship. We've invested time and energy, and no one wants to fail in the relationship. When we go down an intimate or a love situation, we're exposing ourselves to another person at really deep levels. And none of us want to admit that we made a mistake. Um,
Mm.
that's just who we are. We have that need to not be alone. And so any relationship that's in trouble, regardless of why it's there, normally goes through a period of some kind of reconciliation. How can we repair the damage so that we can get back to the way it used to be? It's
Yeah.
just who we are. It's what we do. And this is the problem with being in a troubled relationship is because we want to make it better, because we want to correct what the issue is, we stay and miss the keys of growth. We're so intent in making it work that we don't see the things that are making it not work. And there is a way to, reconstitute or rebirth or reconcile and make a relation live again. And that's what the 7 steps are about.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. These 7 steps to relationship repair. I can't wait to hear what you have to say here because I think a lot of people could be helped by this by that.
Well, I hope so. That's why we're here is to help people get a handle on what's going on so they can make a change. There is one caveat to these 7 steps. Both people in the relationship, the person who did the harm and the person who was harmed, both must agree to try the 7 steps, to go all the way through the 7 steps. A
Mhm.
lot of times, one party won't go through the 7 steps. And for the harmed party, that should tell them right away, okay, this is not going to work. And so I need to figure out, what do I do instead? Pardon me.
Wow.
Okay, the 7 steps. The 7 steps. Both people agree, okay, we're going to go through the 7 steps and try and restart our relationship, right? So the first step is we we have to recognize that harm has been done. That is, the person who caused the harm has to recognize they have caused harm to their partner. And this can be a spouse, a business partner, a child, whoever it might be. The person who caused the action and caused the harm has to recognize that they did something harmful or hurtful, enough so that their partner or this other person is responding to the relationship in a very negative way. Second step, that person who caused the harm has to take responsibility. They have to admit what they did was harmful to their partner, and they have to take responsibility for that action. Now, once they've done that, the next 3 steps are sort of similar, but they're in stages. The first step is the harmed person must agree that the one who did the harm has regret. Okay. I hurt my partner and I have to actually regret my action. The second part of that 2 steps is I have to have remorse for causing that action and that harm. A lot of people say, well, aren't those two the same, the regret and the remorse? Well, they are and they aren't. The regret, if I'm the person who caused the action and caused the harm, I have to have the regret that I hurt you. The remorse is for me. I have to have remorse that I was the one that caused the harm. So the regret is for the person who was harmed, and the remorse is for the person who caused the harm.
Mhm.
This leads to the next step, which is redress. We have to make amends and we have to do something to correct what happened. Okay. I cheated on my wife. I'm sorry I did it. I got caught. I've taken responsibility. I've recognized that there's been harm done. I regret what I did and I have remorse for what I did. Now I have to have some kind of redress. I have to not do that again. And I have to convince my partner that my actions, my redress will be not to go back to that particular person. The next step is the most important, and it comes from the redress from what I'm decided to do, is that action can never be repeated in the future. Now, it can never be repeated with the person that I cheated with, but it has to go farther. That action, the cheating, can never be repeated again in the future with anyone. And, you know, sometimes
Mm,
people in relationship problems get through to this stage, and for a while, everything seems to be okay. And then
mm,
that temptation comes again, and the person has to decide, am I going to step out again, or am I going to, keep my promise and stay where I need to be? And so the repetition is becomes, something that's super important. If that trust is ever going to be rebuilt, that action can never be repeated. It can be
yes.
abusive, it can be, whatever the harm is, it cannot happen again. And finally, the last step is repentance. Now, a lot of people think about repentance from a church or a religious standpoint, but what repentance actually is changed future behavior. Okay. That is, not only can I never repeat that action again, but I have to do everything in my power and have self control to become that new person whose behavior has changed completely from what it used to be. And this is the hard part for the offender, is they have to become a new person. They've got to put away their old ways and become, you know, a completely different person than the person they've been. And these steps are not easy, but they can be done. The thing that is the real key to whether or not, they can work for the parties involved is time. It's not something that happens overnight. It doesn't happen over a matter of weeks. It doesn't happen over a matter of months. Normally, it takes months and months, possibly years, because what you're asking yourself as the offender to do is to become a different person, to become a new person. And what you're promising the person you harmed is that you will, in fact, be a different person in the future. And
Mm,
we see relationships that stay together and are miserable. We see relationships that survive and people kind of live their own lives. And then we see some relationships where people actually, discover a new level of commitment and love, and they both become new people. And that's what the goal is.
wow. And that is definitely, like you said, difficult to do, but I think necessary if you are going to continue in this relationship. So you kind of, hinted at that, but if they are unable to make, because honestly, I think this is where having spirituality, having a relationship with God really comes into play, because I think
Sure.
it takes a lot of willpower, discipline to be able to change that kind of behavior. So if they are unable to do that, people try to give chances and second chances, but to me, is it then that's the deal breaker, and that's when the relationship should sever?
Well, every person in a relationship contributes to its growth or its demise, and
Mm,
only the people in that relationship know when that time comes. My thought is two things. Number one, why would you want to be with a person who doesn't love you or care enough to treat you with respect and with appropriate behavior. And that's sort of the key question. And once you've answered that question, there's a lot of relationships where people, for economic or social or religious or whatever reasons, can't or believe they can't get out of it. And those are difficult situations. And at that point, the best thing is professional help, counseling of
Mm,
some kind. And like you say, and I definitely agree, get spiritually grounded and attempt to get your
yeah.
partner spiritually grounded. When you have a spiritual relationship with God, you have something special, and it will allow you to see truth in your life. And once you
Mm,
see the truth in your life, you'll also see all of the lies and the fabrications, and the fake things that are happening in your life. And then we each have a choice to make. How do I want to live my life? And if you're in a situation where you can't, for whatever reason, get out of the relationship, then you have to work to somehow make that relationship viable. And
mm.
my suggestion to anybody there is get spiritually grounded, get a relationship with God through Jesus Christ, and get your partner at least started on that path with you. If you do it together, it's easier because you're doing something together, and that's the whole point of a relationship, right? Is to do it together, to live life together.
Absolutely.
So agree to make this, the next step that you attempt together. If
Wow.
none of that works, then you have to, your own best interest is to your well-being, your health, mental health, physical health. And if you're in a situation that's detrimental to those things, then you have to seriously consider whether or not it's worth staying. And if you're in a life and death situation, you definitely want to consider, you know, uh, changing that. Um, but try and get
Absolutely.
help. Don't turn to your girlfriends or your buddies, and tell them they're in the same situation. They just won't blurt it out like you may be. We always want to help our friends, but if we're not qualified, then the best thing we can do is listen, be polite and civil, and say, you guys need to get some professional help.
Oh, yes, that is actually an excellent point because a lot of people they have, couch therapy with friends and
Yeah,
that doesn't really do the trick. I mean, it may be good for venting and I don't even know that that's great because everybody doesn't need to know all of the deep details of our relationships, especially if we were talking about like a marriage. Everybody doesn't need to know all of that. But yeah, sometimes just to vent is okay, but not to get the healing that you need. That's something deeper.
right.
So I agree with that. Wow. So those are amazing steps and I hope you guys if you did not hear it all the first time, listen to the replay because I think that is a really amazing way to go through healing your relationship if you've had something that has caused an issue.
And
So that's
Jay,
awesome. Yes.
yeah, it's so many people who are having issues in their relationships don't know what to do, right?
Mhm.
They want to start and they want to make it better, but okay, what do I do? He's apologized or she's apologized, and I've said okay, now what? And that's what the seven
Mhm.
steps are about. It gives you a track to run on. It gives you seven steps that will address the issue, no matter what it is. You can address the issue and work through how to resolve and correct or change the issue. And that's the whole point. It actually gives people who want to make that journey, a track to run on to get to the end. Too many people just go, well, I'd like to do it, but I don't know what to do. So hopefully now we've helped
Mhm.
them figure out what they can do.
Yes, and important to note that these steps have a nexus to the steps that we take when if we are, spiritually minded and have a relationship with God, and we fall into sin. These are the same sorts of steps you take to try to come back from that, and down to the repentance, of course, but even the acknowledging, you know, the Bible talks about confession. So just acknowledging, what you have done. So yeah, it's definitely biblical. So I will give you that. So I thank you for that. And I hope you guys have really gotten what Branch has been saying. This has been really great to go through that. It's something that I want to do. I was actually looking at your YouTube channel, and you have these amazing videos called Thought for Today on YouTube, and I wanted to share a couple of those with our listening audience, if I can, that I thought were really great and actually kind of had a nexus to today's show. So if I'm going to share that. I love that one. If if you could, I would just love to know what your actual inspiration was for that one. I read it, which is beautiful, um, but I really wanted to know what your inspiration was when you created that.
Well, you notice that there's different languages are there for thank you, and it was actually for a Thanksgiving holiday poem. And so even though Thanksgiving is primarily an American thing, every country and every people are thankful in their own traditions, and so that's what it was. It was a holiday um, one, but I wanted to include other languages and other people, more of the thank you, and then of course the spiritual connection as opposed to turkey dinner.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I love the thought of the spiritual connection because I think, like we were kind of talking about, having that relationship with God is so important, not just for us, but for the relationships that we have with other people. It really helps us to have that connection, so that we are not just in the relationship, but that especially a marriage is not just us, but it's that threefold cord, and that God is really in that with us and walking with us in that. So I thought that was great. And I'm going to actually end on another one. If I can get my screen to share. There we go. And I
You
think I've
have
been
me.
talking with myself muted. I was saying I really love this one because this talks about how we may go through pain, whether it's, in a relationship or outside. And, we really do have to lean on God. He really helps us through. And it's also us, we need to have that healing within ourselves when things like this happen, not just within the relationship, but in ourselves, the pain and everything that we go through. So I love that. So those are really
Thank you.
amazing. Yes. And for you guys who don't know, Branch has quite a few of these on YouTube. So definitely check them out. The thought for today. So that this has been a really, really great show, Branch. I cannot thank you enough for coming on and informing my audience about these relationship repair steps. This has been really great.
Thank you, NJ.
Wow, this has been another great show, and I thank my guest, Branch Isole. I was so worried I was going to butcher your name, but I I kept it together throughout the show. But I thank you so much for your insight and these amazing stories. You guys go check that out. Also, make sure you check out Branch's website as well. And I put that up so you guys can see that. And so you can go check him out. And also, all of his 22 books are available on Amazon at Barnes and Nobles and Apple Store. So you guys can check out his catalog of amazing books as well. All right. So this has been another great show. Again, thank you so much, Branch.
My
You
pleasure,
guys,
NJ. Thank you for having me.
yes, absolutely. So you guys, it has been another great show. Thank you all for joining me. And make sure you join us. We are here every second and fourth Friday with amazing guests, just like Branch. Make sure you come back. Make sure you check out his website, check out his catalog of amazing books, and his YouTube channel. Until next time, you guys, remember, stay boss.